she still couldn't figure out what was killing her masukla. Today she had found even more wilting plants, shriveling prematurely as though the water had been sucked out of them. Her other plants were fine. It was only the masukla. What was it? She began digging one up to see the roots. Perhaps there was an infestation? It was true Baan had been busy with her guest. Perhaps something unsavory had taken hold out of sight, beneath the dirt. Frowning, she expanded her spiritual senses. Listening. Immediately her mind was filled with the clamoring of a countless number of souls, from the little rodents scurrying out of sight through the tunnels to the worms that crawled through the dirt beneath her. It was loud, and it made it hard to focus on one thing. As usual, she heard him coming up the hill before she saw him. His presence was simply too overwhelming with her senses open, so she closed herself up again. Baan sighed. What was so hard about lying in bed? She could hear his shuffling steps and the hard tap-tap-tap of her walking stick on the cave floor coming closer and closer. She'd left him her walking stick so he could go to the privy, not so he could stalk her. Was he really so bored? She had prescribed him some simple exercises already, to be done every hour. She had left him some riddles to keep him occupied on top of that. Had they not been enough? Did he need a top and some marbles as well? Before you start scolding me, Lucios said as soon as he'd crested the hill. I thought I'd tell you lunch is ready. What? Baan blinked, then tilted her head to look upward. He was right. The sun had already moved from its zenith. She had worked straight through lunchtime. He must have been hungry. He was clutching the stick a little too tightly, and she could see a thin sheen of sweat on his brow. He had pushed himself to walk up the hill. Baan immediately scowled. Oh, that's not good. Lucios held up a hand. I promise my stitches are fine. He wiped the sweat off his forehead with his arm. I'm just horribly out of shape from lying in bed all day and night. He flashed her another of his charming grins. Baan's expression did not change. His grin faltered. Baan was certain he was used to charming his way into and out of trouble. If he thought that would ever work on her, he had a rude awakening coming. Baan remained stoically unimpressed by his antics. I'm sorry? Baan sighed. She dusted the dirt off her hands and stood, stretching. Her back was sore and so were her knees. She felt the blood rush to her head and swayed, momentarily disoriented. She heard him take a step forward before he stopped. You okay, Baan? Yes. She looked at the masukla again and sighed. She would have to deal with it later. You made lunch? Yeah. Nothing fancy. Just thought you might be hungry. You've been at it all morning. He was right. She was hungry. As usual. I forgot time. You were hungry? Sure. Lying in bed doing nothing really works up an appetite. He smiled at her again, recovering his cheek. Apologies. Baan sighed again. Why was there always so much to do in a day? I was joking. Baan, I'm not that hungry. I don't really do enough to work up an appetite, you know? But you probably do. He gestured to the plants. What's wrong with those? I do not know. That is problem. Oh, well, how about some lunch and then you can get back at it? Yes. She paused. Thank you. His grin widened, showing off his straight, white teeth. Don't thank me until you've tried it. I never actually learned how to cook. Oh. It was really not that bad. It wasn't that good, but it wasn't that bad. In truth, it was more than acceptable. Baan wasn't much of a cook, either. Besides all that, Baan was not a picky eater, not anymore. She ate nearly anything, these days. Wow, he said, watching her tuck away her third serving. You must have been starving. I mean, I know it's not that good. Yes, I was, much, hungry. She paused to look at him before she put the next spoonful in her mouth. The soup was very close to what she usually made. He really had been paying attention. Your food is acceptable. The corners of his lips twitched upwards into a smile. Acceptable, huh? I'll take it. That's better than I was expecting. What were you expecting? His smile widened into a grin. I thought you were going to tell me I made a bad decision with the rao roots. Couldn't find anything else I recognized, though. Only that? Well, I thought you'd make that clicking sound with your tongue again, too. Baan's response was automatic. She stopped herself after the first disapproving click of her tongue. See? He seemed far too amused to be charming. You're scrunching up your nose now. Baan forced herself to stop. This only seemed to amuse him more. She heard a little wheeze as he tried to keep himself from laughing. Do not laugh. It will hurt. I know, I'm trying. Can you try to be less, you know? I do not know. Never mind. He hid his grin behind his hand, completely unsubtle. I baked some of those mushrooms too. Want some? I think they should be done by now. Baan tilted her head so she could see beneath the cauldron. Aha! He had placed the mushrooms in a covered clay bowl. Now that she was paying attention, she thought she could hear a little sizzling sound. Oh, this would be very good. She loved baked mushrooms, all kinds of mushrooms. Yes. I will take them from fire. Do not stand. She gave him a stern look and he obeyed with a smile that was too sweet to be believable. Insufferable man. Bon grabbed the metal stick she used to poke the fire and carefully pushed the bowl out of the flames. She grabbed her apron, folding the fabric multiple times before using it to pick up the hot bowl and placing it onto the rock floor. Here, Bon wasn't too hungry to mind her manners. She served him first, though he declined the extra portion. You can take the rest. You really like these, right? Had she been that obvious? Yes. I like mushrooms. What else had he noticed? Bon tried not to let her unease show on her face. It would not be good if he realized who she was. He was Dolcoiri, and like most of their men, had likely served in the army. Letting him go could. She stifled a sigh. Why had she saved this man? Now things were more complicated. Bon did not want to kill him after the trouble she had gone through to save him in the first place. If only he were more of a dullard, she would not have these concerns. Bon? Is something wrong? No. Yes. It would be unwise to tell him she was thinking of killing him in his sleep. Well, if you say so. By the way, I figured out your riddles. The third one was pretty hard. Bon lifted an eyebrow. He had figured them out already? Well, perhaps it was not so strange. It had taken Vati slightly longer to figure out the third riddle, and Saluka had taken nearly a full day. Very well. What answer? Okay, the first one is fish. Bon nodded. He was correct. The second one is, I think it's time, right? Yes. She frowned. Had they really been that easy? He grinned, clearly pleased with himself. Last one's love. Bon blinked in surprise, her hand going to the necklace of teeth around her neck. No. What? Really? Really? Try again. Lucio's forehead crinkled into a frown. Wait, really? But. He began to mutter the riddle to himself again. Bon popped another mushroom into her mouth. Oh, she enjoyed beer talai very much. They were even better when salted, but she did not wish to waste the salt rock she had left. It was expensive. Lucios had finished muttering to himself in the meantime and was frowning at her. Are you sure? Bon had had difficulty with the translation, which was perhaps the problem. Even so, it was somewhat insulting to be asked if Bon was sure. Of course Bon was sure. It was her riddle. The look she gave him was thoroughly unimpressed. I am sure. Her tone was as dry as the sand in the dunes outside. Okay, I might need a bit more time with that one. Bon shrugged. There is much time. Do not worry. Right, but I was sure I'd gotten it. He sighed. Oh well. Hey, Bon, have you thought about making traps to catch more animals? I was thinking I could make some since I'm, doing absolutely nothing. What do you think? I have traps. They're in cave and cliffs. Really? I should have known. Well, do you want me to make you some extra? You can save time that way. Bon pushed away her guilt by putting another mushroom on his plate and glaring at him until he took it. It would be a waste to kill him. And, surely she could return him using a route that was confusing? It would do him no good even if he did guess who she was if he could never find her not Vuti again. He was Dolcoiri, not Kavari. Desert geography could not possibly be something he was good at. Yes, it was best not to be hasty with these things. She had already killed enough to last her lifetime. This one and the next, and the one after that. You not need worry for traps. I'm not worried. I'm just, kind of useless right now. I can't say I like it that much. Are you sure there isn't something I can do while lying down or sitting? Bon chewed thoughtfully on her mushroom and swallowed. It was true that complete bedrest could be detrimental. The muscles needed some use, which was why she had made him do his flexing exercises every hour. He also walked a bit every day, which seemed to be comfortable enough unless he did something stupid like walk uphill. Did she have something he could do? Yes, she said, finally. Yes, there is something. He grinned. Remember. Stop if feel pain. Understand? I will. I promise. Lucios looked delighted, which struck Bon as very strange. There was bored, and then there was Lucios. Sometimes she did not even know what she was supposed to think. Never mind say, when he acted up the way he did he simply not feel pain? She had not dosed him nearly enough for him to be so cheerful. Why was he always so cheerful? Was he actually an idiot? Perhaps Bon worried over nothing. Or perhaps he was just so clever that he had her neatly fooled. It was truly difficult to tell. Sometimes. Bon had taken the herbs she had dried on the roof of her Notvuti and stacked them by type in the kitchen, and then she had made a little nest for him on the floor by taking the leather and fur rug as well as her own blankets and piling them up. Then she had rolled up his blanket to create a backrest so he could lean comfortably against the wall. His only task, aside from his hourly exercises, was to grind up her herbs and put the powder into bags. Baan had instructed him to label the bags as well, which she expected to be a challenge because he could not read or write Kavari. To make things simple, she had labeled the bags she had already filled and put them at the head of each pile of herbs. All he had to do was copy the label that was on that bag. Easy. Except maybe it wasn't. Looking at the distance between the nearest and furthest pile, it looked like he would have to shuffle forward to finish up. Baan bit her lower lip lightly, wondering if she ought to just take away the furthermost pile. It's fine, don't worry. He grinned at her in a reassuring way. I won't overextend myself. You don't have to move anything. Don't you have a garden mystery to solve? Baan frowned. How had he known what she was thinking? I'll be fine. Get going, Baan. You're burning daylight. What a strange expression. How could daylight burn? She gave him a look that she hoped communicated her thoughts about his oddness. Perhaps it worked. He made the little wheezing sound he resorted to when he was trying to suppress a laugh. Yes, the Outlander is crazy. I get it, but my hands work fine. Hey, wanna race? No, that is stupid. Oh, come on. Let's say if I finish labeling these before you solve your garden mystery, you'll, answer 3 questions with complete honesty. How about it? Well, that was suspiciously specific. How dangerous. No, that is stupid. You hurt self. She paused to give him a cool look of superiority before saying snippily, you lose anyway. Oh ho ho. You can't say that and expect me to back down. Come on, Baan. You know you want to. You're going to win anyway, so what are you so scared of? You hurt self and I must stitch again. Very annoying. Oh come on. I promised I wouldn't do anything stop. You did not keep. I did. No. You walk uphill. Very stupid. I used a stick. I was fine. Nothing ripped. How is that stupid? Risk is stupid. Ah, come on, Baan. Don't tell me you're scared you'll lose. It's only 3 little questions. This she found doubtful. Though she was disturbed, he seemed to think she would answer honestly if he won. He wasn't wrong. Baan had been, Kavari. She was not practiced at lying, which Dolkoiri seemed to excel at. It was probably written all over her face every time she said something untrue, or even half-true. She stifled a sigh. Perhaps he knew more about Kavari customs than he let on? No, why not? He gave her an exaggerated look of interest. Are you keeping some terribly nasty secrets tucked away somewhere? Oh, do you have bodies buried under your garden? Or maybe in the walls? He widened his eyes dramatically. Oh, I get it. You're going to fatten me up and then eat me, right? Like in those awful children's tales? You made a mistake with the whole cave thing. You should have made this place out of sweets. Like said, stupid. She clicked her tongue at him in irritation. She had no idea what awful children's tales he was referring to. Kavari children's tales did not include stories about booty made of sweets. What kind of nonsense story was that? He snickered. There you go with the tongue clicking and nose wrinkling. Lucios grinned at her again, and when he spoke again his tone was gratingly jovial. What happens if I keep going? Will your head actually explode? No, your head explode. Because I drop pot on it. Stop talking. He made his little wheezing sound again. I'll be awfully impressed if you do. That cauldron's big, and you're just so tiny. I don't even know how you get it over the fire without snapping in half. Lucios, stop talking. But Baan, you like it. She glared at him. She did not like it. He was chattier than a kia bird. Insufferable. How had his tongue not wagged itself out of his mouth? You like it. Do not drag me in. Lucios leaned forward then stopped, wincing. Stupid. Ah, ouch. Okay, no leaning. That was dumb. But Baan, you like it when I say stupid things. It gives you something to be grumpy about. And you really like being grumpy. Sometimes I can hear you being grumpy in your cave all the way from over here. It's an incredible talent you've got. I am not grumpy. I am serious. That is different. Oh, okay. I guess you're wrinkling your forehead now because you're being serious, not grumpy. You are, Baan spluttered. Her Dolkoiri was simply not good enough, so she switched to Kavari. Completely insufferable. I'm sure you got stabbed because you couldn't stop running your mouth for 3 seconds. I'd return you now if I had a strippa to tie you to, but it would take one look at you and run. Lucios stared at her. Oh wow, that's more than you've said in 3 days. Usually it's, yes, no, that's stupid, lie down. He grinned. Too bad I understood maybe 3 words of that. Something about mouths, tying me, and taking me? His grin broadened as he snickered, delightedly. That's real naughty. Baan, I would have never guessed you had it in you. You're just so prim and proper all the time. What? The man was insane. Insane. I am going. Do not talk. Glaring, Baan stood and retreated. Behind her, she could hear him wheezing as he tried his best not to laugh. Insufferable. The man was just insufferable. Baan had been right. There had been something beneath the soil. Frowning, she looked at the snails eating the roots of her masukla. Strange. The sari lahi should have kept the pests off, but it hadn't worked. Why? Baan took some sari lahi leaves and stuck them into her mouth. They tasted fine. Astringent and bitter, just the way they were supposed. She spat them out. Well, they were mostly right, but perhaps there was something in the soil. The taste was a bit sweeter than usual. Had Baan used the wrong kind of compost? She didn't think so. Had she changed anything? Or, perhaps she had planted them too far apart? Gauging the distance was a bit harder since the garden was terraced. Moisture was harder to control, too. Perhaps it was that? Well. Regardless, she had to get rid of the snails. Baan plucked one and inspected it. It was a brown snail, which was edible. When Baan walked into the kitchen, Lucios was hard at work. He looked up at her with a grin, which she promptly ignored. She rummaged for a clay pot as he spoke to her back. Did you figure it out already? Yes. She found the pot she had wanted and began to walk back to the cave. Oh, guess you were right. I would have lost. It was true. He wasn't anywhere near finished. Too bad you didn't want to race. You could have won something. Like? 3 questions? Baan snorted. I not have questions. Really? Not even one? No. There was no point in getting to know him better. Once he was well enough, she would send him to the nearest Dolkoiri city, Kairos, with a request that he ensure Kavari were not blamed for the incident. And that would be that. The end. Wait, really? You're serious? Baan turned her head to look at him. He seemed genuinely surprised. I am. Oh, that's, not even a little curious? I mean, what if I'm some kind of axe murderer? You are not. How would you know? Very seriously, she said, you not have axe. He guffawed, and she made a noise of alarm. No, do not laugh. He winced in pain and stopped, wheezing. Ow, yup, that was dumb. But damn, Baan, you hiding a sense of humor in there? It was true. She had meant to be funny, but now she was only embarrassed and ashamed. It had been childish to make a man with a belly wound laugh. She turned away with a delicate little sniff. I not hide anything. He snickered quietly to himself. No, but seriously, how do you know I'm not some dangerous maniac? I know, that wasn't strictly true, but it was true enough. His soul song sounded bright, and nothing like any of the sadists she'd ever met. There was nothing about him that made her suspect he would harm her for no reason other than pleasure. Of course, he could harm her for other reasons, like if he ever found out who she was. Baan thought most Dolkoiri men, especially soldiers, would find that justifiable, if not an outright requirement. They were violent when their pride was pricked, which was nearly always. Of course, Baan could be wrong about these things too. Soul reading was no sure thing, but she was willing to risk it. Baan was not often wrong. Well, if you say so. He looked doubtful, and she thought he looked faintly concerned, as well. How? Curious. But hey, you could have asked for something else. Like, maybe have me make all the meals for a week or something. No. Stitches could rip. Trouble. Should have known you'd say that. Hey, you need any help with? No. She looked at him sternly. Remember to do exercise. Rest if hurt. Do not lean out. He smiled again. Right. Don't worry. I'll get this done soon, without ripping anything open. Promise. Let me know if you want anything, though I guess you probably won't. Be well, Lucios. Do not rip anything. The path up the cliff and over to the other side was dangerous at night. It was a narrow footpath on a steep incline then sudden decline, and it wound its way around the cliff wall as sinuously as a snake. There were few handholds along the wall of the cliff itself. All this combined with low visibility made this venture somewhat unwise. But Baan had had very little choice. Lucios was an early riser. He was awake before even the first light of the sun had filtered in through the roof of her Notvuti. He woke earlier than she did and went to bed later than she did. The only time she would be able to escape his notice was in the dead of night. From a common-sense perspective, it had already occurred to Baan that he would perhaps notice nothing if she went to check the traps in the day. After all, that is what she normally did. But Baan could not bring herself to do what she needed to when she knew he was awake. He had a terrible habit of simply appearing whenever he was bored, and he pushed himself more than he should. What if he decided to follow her out to the traps one day and saw her? Of course, he was not likely to be able to take the incline in his condition now, but that hadn't stopped him from going uphill and downhill inside the Birvuti. Lucios was a bad patient. He did all sorts of things he wasn't supposed to. It drove her mad, but it also made her extra vigilant. It was very unlikely, Baan knew, and yet the thought of doing this in the day when he was awake filled her with a kind of dread? No, not quite dread. Something close, but not quite. She had tried to make herself take a soul during the day when she normally checked the traps, but her heart had pounded the entire time and she had not been able to stop glancing around the canyon. So this was the only way. Outside the sheer cliff walls was a valley of spindly akai trees. It was a popular shady spot for animals to rest, which meant it was a perfect spot for a trap or two. Sometimes, her timing was poor and she only found a ruined trap with the animal gone, or she found a carcass which was fine for eating but not for this. Tonight she was lucky, and there was a desert fox. It was still alive, though barely. It had fought, and the noose had tightened around its neck to the point of strangulation. It must have been caught recently, as it had not yet expired. Ba'an approached the captured creature. Shush, she said, and she reached out with just a bit of magic to calm it. It was dying, its soul tethered to its body by only a thread. That did not mean it could not feel pain. Ba'an reached in and snipped the parts that sent signals to the nerves, and the animal slumped to the ground. She put her hand over its head and took hold of its soul, and then she snipped the thread and ate it. The sigh escaped her before she could stop it. Finally, relief. Not total relief. A fox's soul was hardly enough for a snack, never mind a full meal. But it felt like a mouthful of cool water after a day's work in the sun. Not enough, but better than nothing at all. The yawning hunger inside her withdrew, just a little. Ba'an could stop fantasizing about doing the same to Lucios now. It had been very hard, his soul was so bright and loud. But she could be more civil now, though she would check the other traps before going back, too. But first, Ba'an tightened the noose. She did not waste food, but a dead body without a mark would lead to questions. It was better to make sure it looked like it had died struggling against the wire around its neck than anything else. If he asked, she would simply tell him she had been restless and had gone to check the traps. That should work, particularly since she had something to show for it. Yes, that would work, and it wasn't strictly a lie, either. Right. Ba'an picked up the carcass and moved on to the next trap. Okay, try this one. I have no weight, but if you put me in a bucket, I make the bucket lighter. What am I? A hole. You've already heard that one, haven't you? Yes, it is common. Ba'an was only half paying attention, trying to stitch the many small leather hides into one big sheet. It was slow, tedious work, and Ba'an hated it. Well, I think it's your turn then. No, you not solve third riddle yet. Oh come on, Ba'an, that's just mean. Give me another one while I work through your really hard riddle that I totally answered correctly. It not correct. No way, it has to be. 1. You can't stop it. 2. You go absolutely crazy. 3. It's something everyone wants, but can't buy. Rarer than jewels, and far more precious? That's love, the real kind. Gotta be. Nothing else fits. Dolcoiri love is strange. Why go mad? Make no sense. What? Of course you go mad. Have you never been in love? Or do Kavari love differently? Are you lot all calm and rational about it? No way. Madness is not love. That is. Ba'an frowned, trying to find the right word. She failed. Something else. That's not really helpful. Ba'an, and for the record, I see you've avoided my question, though I guess there's more than one kind of love. Do Kavari only know philia and storge? That can't be right. Is that even possible? I mean, for individuals, sure, but every Kavari? I do not know words. Oh, right. Well when I say, love, and here he used the new Dolcoiri word that he had taught her, eros. She had thought it meant love in the Kavari way, a strong sense of attachment and loyalty. But now she suspected she had misunderstood him. I mean the kind where you go just completely crazy over someone. It's a sort of divine madness. You can't stop that arrow. Once it hits. It hits. That's it. She felt her brows knit. Arrow? You shoot your lover? It was the most Dolcoiri thing she had heard all day. Was there no end to their insanity? He started to laugh, but slapped his hand over his mouth, forcing it down. What? Oh, Theoi. No, it's not literal. Ba'an, Eros is the name of a god. He's the one that makes you fall in love. You'll love whomever you see first once he shoots you with an arrow. You know? That is very stupid. Lucios, surely they did not truly believe this. It was absurd. If a god shoots you, you will die. This was common sense. Even the small gods, the Basaan, were fearsome in their fury. Lucios finished wheezing, then cleared his throat. No one actually believes that's what really happens. Ba'an, it's just a story you tell your kids when they start noticing girls, or boys, whichever. Anyway, Eros is exactly what the poets go on and on about. Where you just go so crazy over a woman, you'd do anything, just anything, to have her. Well, it can be between a man and a man or a woman and a woman too. But the most famous story is about this woman named Callisto, who was so beautiful that the ruler of one of the old city-states went to war to take her. To take? By force? That is, not love. We call it, violence. No. Kavari word is yutani, take woman by force, violence. And for beauty, it is something else also. We call it, rutalani. It is for, young ones. Burns hot, burns out, done. Sometimes yutani and rutalani happen same time. But, yutani is very bad. Lukios. No Kavari woman wants this. Wait, I think something got mixed up here. I didn't mean the force part was eros. Okay, it can be part of it, sometimes. Like you said about the yutani and the rutalani happening together? I guess yutani is rape? That's not considered a good thing for us, either. But eros doesn't always involve rape, and it isn't supposed to burn out. It's not like rutalani, either. It's not supposed to be about just the physical bits. But it is about. She did not know what the dolkoiri word for sex was, so she rounded her left hand and made a thrusting motion with her right, making sure the fingers went in and out. Lukios choked on his own spit and began to cough. Lukios, do not cough. He wheezed. Not my fault. You just, he wheezed again, trying desperately not to laugh. It was a losing battle. His shoulders shook even as he complained. Ow, fuck, ow. Baan watched him helplessly. She had not meant to be funny at all. Eventually he calmed down, wiping tears from the corners of his eyes. She could not tell if they were from pain or pleasure. Regardless, she would have to ensure he had not torn himself open. She began to stand, but Lukios shook his head. Nah, I'm good. Really, you can finish your stitching. Really, Baan, I'm fine. Just a little sore. She eyed him as she slowly sank back into her seat. He did not appear to be lying. He cleared his throat and began again. Well, you're half right. I mean, sex is a big part of it, but originally, I think, well, the idea is when mankind was created, we were all whole, our souls, I mean, but then some asshole committed some awful crime and the punishment was to be cut in half. So now we all wander around looking for our other half. That's real eros. Though it's true, practically, it's almost always about a pretty face. Anyway, eros is definitely a kind of madness. There's no escaping it. That was shockingly romantic. She had not expected such philosophy from the dolkoiri, who were often violent toward everyone, including their own. Then again, perhaps such philosophy was used to justify the violence? After all, what argument could one use against the assertion that the victim had gotten in the way of the other half of one's soul, or that the victim of yutani was indeed their other half, and therefore had no recourse? How terrible. There was nothing like eros in the Kavari vocabulary, though the closest was perhaps. Anyway, there's the other stuff like philia which, you've gone awfully quiet. Baan, I am thinking. She twisted the little necklace of teeth around her fingers before speaking again. For love, there is, ritalani and katalani. Ritalani is like rutalani, but not burn out, last longer, like, low fire, starts hot, burns low, sometimes become katalani and back. Katalani is like, deep friendship, respect. It is common if married. Oh, ritalani sounds a bit like eros and philia combined. Philia is, like deep friendship. I guess katalani is more like philia by itself. Though, I'm not sure where storge and agape would fit. The first one's for family, and the second one is like, I guess what the gods feel for us tiny humans. I'm thinking maybe our definitions don't really match up. She nodded. Yes, families can feel katalani too, though now that she thought about it, ritalani could be destructive too, especially when combined with rutalani. She frowned. Thought of something? Yes. Sometimes, yes. Kavari can love badly. Many stories. Yeah, S2. I guess love sucks for everyone. Sucks? Yeah, it's just kind of painful and messy but you can't stop. Sucks. Baan frowned at this. She had not found love itself to be painful, messy, or uncontrollable, though such things had been true for some members of the tribe. Sometimes there was jealousy and violence, though such instances were rare. Baan had rarely mediated on such matters, having had no patience for it. Yulma, even after leaving the Shivuti, had always advised on messy, inconvenient things. I not think is true. Oh? Sometimes is gentle and calm, but yes, sometimes it sucks. She shrugged. It depend. Lukios couldn't roll over without pain, but he did manage to tilt his head to fix her with a curious stare. Really? So you're saying this love of yours was gentle and calm? Baan had never mentioned any love of hers. He was making assumptions, correct ones, but assumptions still. I not say was mine. Lukio's expression didn't change. Okay, so what was yours like? Had she really been that obvious? Well, it wasn't as though she had to answer him. Baan continued stitching in silence. He didn't last long. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. That's fair, right? I not want know yours. Oh, ouch. Aren't you at least a bit curious? No,